Gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
voicemail again last night. The one where I said fine but meant fight. Left her standing in the rain with half a suitcase. Told myself it was strength, just cowardice in disguise. Checked my old boss's LinkedIn this morning. Saw the team photo, my desk filled by someone. Promised I'd build something real. Ended up binge watching reruns, numb and unreal. But the mirror won't lie, not tonight. I won't be the man who walked away. My regrets burn, but they don't own me. I scream into the void until it breaks. This rage is mine to reclaim. Found my dad's toolbox in the garage today. Rusted wrench, oil stained notes in his handwriting. Me never said sorry either, just fix things. Maybe redemption isn't words, maybe it's showing up again. The past is a ghost, but I'm still breathing. I won't be the man who walked away. My regrets burn, but they don't only. I scream into fight until it breaks. This rage is mine to reclaim. So I'll call her tomorrow. Apologize for nothing but the silence. Start small, fix the nearest fence, and show up early, stay late, mean what I say. I won't be the man who walked away. My regrets there, but they don't own me. I scream into the void until it breaks. This rage is mine to reclaim. To stay.
Hello there, everyone. Welcome to the God TV Radio podcast tonight, and welcome to the Proverbs Guys Ministries Network, as you can see here on YouTube. But if you're watching this on the restream on my Rumble channel, you're welcome as well. Thank you for being here. Unfortunately, tonight's show and all shows moving forward will not be streaming to my FTJ Media channel because FTJ Media got deplatformed this week. One of their cloud service providers decided to pull the rug out from under them because someone on the website uploaded something that they didn't like. Typical tech censorship story from 10 years ago or so. Very sad. So unfortunately, FTJ Media, it seems, for the future is not going to be a streaming location for this show. But we are streaming for the first time this show to my BitChute channel. So we're on BitChute Live right now. If you're watching on BitChute Live or after the fact, thank you for being here. We're on my Rumble channel right now, and we're live on the Proverbs Guys Ministries YouTube channel. And this will be backed up to my Spotify account later on. So all of you watching, well, no matter where it's at, whether it's live or after the fact, thank you for being here. Also, if you haven't been keeping score lately, you may have noticed that not too long ago, the Proverbs Guys Ministries YouTube channel hit 4,000 subs, and we had a celebration stream for it. Well, now we're at over 4,700 subs in just a month. the channel has gained over 700 subscribers. It's been quite a treat to witness, for sure. And hopefully we can just keep on going and reach more and more people with the truth about Jesus, the truth about the gospel, the truth about young earth creationism, and all of the other things that we cover here on the Proverbs Guys Ministries channel and network. But before we get into our continuing series with the creation dialogues, I would like to turn your attention over to something very important. Just go ahead and screen share right there for you guys. Obviously, I'm TTOR. If you are interested in the content that I put out outside of the Proverbs Guys Ministries Network, there's my YouTube channel, which has experienced some growth the last couple of days, which I always appreciate. You'll find me talking about creationism topics, current events topics, tech-related topics, and other topics that you won't see on the Proverbs Guys Network. And if you're interested in seeing those things on my YouTube channel, you can see it right there on the screen. My handle is at TTOR13. And I would encourage you to subscribe to my channel and check out my videos there. There's also my Spotify account where I back up all of my videos and these shows. So if you're interested in checking me out on Spotify, I would encourage you to do that as well. And also, one of the other places, as I mentioned, that we are streaming the show to is my Rumble channel. Rumble is a place I've been at for a while. I'm approaching 200 followers there. If you would like to help me grow on Rumble, I would appreciate the follow, because on my Rumble channel, you can see all the live shows and all the videos that you would see on YouTube, plus a few extras. And then, of course, there's my BitChute channel, which is one of the other places we're streaming to. I have over 2,300 subs on my BitChute channel, and I have over 827,000 total video views, which on Rumble makes me one of the bigger channels on the site. So if you would be interested in helping me continue to grow on BitChute, and if you're interested in watching all of my old videos from before 2022, well, then I would encourage you to subscribe to my BitChute channel and watch my videos there, because not only do all my current videos go to my BitChute channel, not only are we streaming tonight's show and all shows moving forward live on my BitChute channel, but you can see almost all of my old videos going all the way back to late 2017 on my BitChute channel. So if you want to see what I was like when I was in my late 20s and I was in my early 30s, well, then feel free to check that out. I would encourage you to do so. And if you're interested in following me on social media sites outside of video content, the best place to catch me at is my Creation Social account, which you can see Creation Social right here on the page, right here on the screen. Creation Social is a Twitter alternative that I started back in December of 2022. It originally was a Facebook alternative styled after Facebook, but then I decided to reboot the website recently as a Twitter alternative. We're approaching 100 members on the site right now, and this is a great functional social media site. So if you're interested in following me on any social media site, I would encourage you to join Creation Social. Follow me there, check out my posts there, and share your own posts here as well. And then there's my Twitter account, also known as X these days, which you can see right on the screen. Another great place to keep up with my content, as well as see the kind of news and current events that I'm keeping up with outside of my channels. So check that out. And then there's my Gab account, which is like a Twitter, Facebook hybrid at this point. And I have over 1,300 followers there. So if you'd like to follow me there, help me grow there, and keep up with my content there, follow me on Gab. Same thing with Getter, Twitter alternative. I share all my videos here. Another great place to follow me at. I have over 400 followers there. So if you want to follow me here, I would appreciate it. And then, of course, there's Truth Social, which is my own, well, I really screwed that up because I'm still on the Creation Social mindset. Truth Social is a social media site that was started by Donald Trump and the media company he created right after he was banned from Twitter and a bunch of other social media sites at the end of his first presidential term. So Truth Social is something he started up through that, and it is the place where he posts all of his social media posts, even though he's been reinstated on Twitter for a couple of years now. But I have my own Truth Social account, and I got a few followers here, and I share all my posts here. So if you want to follow me on Truth Social and keep up with me there, I would appreciate that as well. So that's all the different places you can follow me at on the internet outside of the Proverbs Guys Ministries YouTube channel. And with no further ado, let's get into the reading for the Creation Dialogues, which I gotta say, the Creation Dialogues is a very powerful, and I mean very powerful. Hold on, something's not coming up here. There we go. That's the way I wanted it. Now I just gotta check one other thing. Just gotta check the YouTube feed for Proverbs Guys to make sure everything is hunky-dory on my end. And okay, yeah, it's looking pretty good right here. And oh yeah. Although to be fair, I think I'm going to change the feed a little. There we go. All right, that's the way I like to have it. I don't know why it's defaulting to this other view. I see 153 DC say, "Dialogue me. Make my gasters flabbered, I dare ya." Well, I will certainly try. But with that being said, let me go ahead and put this down, keep a tab on that feed as we go. So last week we were in chapters 3 and 4 of the Creation Dialogues. Today we're going to be in chapters 5 and 6 of the Creation Dialogues. And in case you do not know, the Creation Dialogues, or as the full title goes, the Creation Dialogues, a response to the position of the American Association for the Advancement of Science on Evolution Christianity. This book was written by my good friend, Dr. J.D. Mitchell. He's a creationist who has written books, this one that we're reading through, obviously, and the other book that he wrote is actually a fossil guidebook, the only fossil guidebook on the planet written from the young Earth creationism perspective. Between that and all of the presentations he's given over the years on various creationist apologetics topics, I think Dr. J.D. Mitchell is a highly underrated and relatively unknown creationist apologist that I have no problem sharing his work to a wider audience. And so we're going to start reading through chapter 5 of J.D. Mitchell's book, The Creation Dialogues, which is called The Science Behind Evolution. Angela's Story. "There you go again" was a saying used by the American President Ronald Reagan in his debates with political opponents. The same quote is quite appropriate for the arguments put forth by evolutionists in chapter 5 of the Evolution Dialogues. Angela explains her father's objections to evolutionary theories to Dr. Dunbar by saying, "My dad says it's one thing to improve a line of cattle through selective breeding, but that cows evolving through other species is impossible." And then she says, "But Dr. Brown also talked about how new species are formed through macroevolution, so my dad was wrong." Well, there you go again. The authors are playing the evolutionist's favorite game of confusing definitions in an attempt to conceal the fact that they have no proof for macroevolution. It is true that evolutionists evidently believe that they have an overarching explanatory framework that has been carefully reconstructed, but where is the proof that their theory has been proven by scientific tests? You won't find that proof anywhere in chapter 5. What you will find are statements such as, number 1, "Nonetheless, a well-grounded theory does point toward the truth." Number 2, "Evolution is a theory, one of the greatest of all scientific theories, a theory that provides the most consistent explanation for many known facts." Number 3, nature has been at her job for millennia. Macroevolution. Look at this orchard. These are statements of faith based on the presuppositions that microevolution can be extrapolated to macroevolution and that the Earth is billions of years old. The theory that Dr. Dunbar says points toward the truth is grounded on atheistic presuppositions and nothing more. In addition, the authors insult the intelligence of their readers when they use the, let me check one more thing. Okay, yeah, my mic's good. I don't know why I had that thought, but just figure I'd check that. Let's pick up where we left off, though. In addition, the authors insult the intelligence of their readers when they use the germ theory as an analogy for evolutionary theory. There is plenty of real science that Angela's dad can refer to if he has any doubts about the efficacy of washing his hands to avoid microbe-borne disease. He could study many books and scientific papers that explain the connection of germs to disease. He could even do his own experiments on his farm with the assistance of microscopes and petri dishes. That would be an example of the valid exercise of the scientific method. There are only comparisons of apples to oranges available to evolutionists, and they have nothing else to use. We learn that the specific macroevolution that Dr. Dunbar is selling to Angela on this day is that of orchards. She explained that over long periods of time, orchards evolved into orchards and then evolved into more orchards. That is microevolutionary change. That is variety within one kind and is not macroevolution in all of its glory. As Angela's story is paused, it seems doubtful that she will be able to convince her father to accept her newfound university learning because he believes what he believes. But our fictional Dr. Dunbar and the real AAAS believe what they believe too. They believe that given enough time, mutations and natural selection will change orchards into something else, perhaps a frog, or maybe a prince. Angela's story continues to be one of atheism versus Christianity. Any Christian who does not realize this will be open to teetering between his Christian faith and a belief in a religion of total inconsistency. Atheists clearly understand this fact, as attested by the following quote. Christianity has fought, still fights, and will fight science to the desperate end over evolution because evolution destroys utterly and finally the very reason Jesus' earthly life was supposedly made necessary. Destroy Adam and Eve and the original sin, and in the rubble you will find the sorry remains of the Son of God. Take away the meaning of his death. If Jesus was not the Redeemer who died for our sins, and this is what evolution means, then Christianity is nothing. The science behind evolution. What science is. The authors of the Evolution Dialogues devote Chapter 5 to an attempt at explaining their understanding of what science is and is not. Their opinion can be summarized by 4 quotes taken from this chapter. Number 1. Science is a process through which people seek a better understanding of the natural world around them. Page 98. Number 2. Science is the quest for explanations of how things work based on natural processes and structures. Page 107. Number 3, there is a term for a basic principle that undergirds scientific practice. It is methodological naturalism, and it is the assumption that explanations provided by science should make reference only to nature itself. Page 107. Number 4, science is not the only way of knowing. It is a way of knowing based on information attained through human interaction with the natural world. Page 108. The authors make a feeble attempt to define their methodological naturalism as not being a philosophical position. That, of course, makes no sense since they admit that their way of determining what makes up science is based on an assumption. This is an assumption that does not allow them to look at evidences except according to their preconceived presuppositions. These are the presuppositions that I have been continuously analyzing and discussing up to this point in the creation dialogues, showing they do in fact have an overt and obvious philosophical position that is not in any way neutral. This philosophical position forces all evolutionists to commit logical thinking errors that even they admit are not scientific. A good example of this is seen in the explanation for the origin of the long necks of giraffes. On page 99, the authors write, explanations that only rely on claims not grounded in the physical world are outside of science. And they add that supernatural explanations are inventions or fables. But previously, the authors wrote, page 98, that through fossil evidence, they, evolutionary scientists, know that the modern giraffe evolved from antelope-like ancestors that lacked an especially long neck. Here again, we see how methodological naturalism has forced creation of an invention, fable, or fairy tale. The fossil evidence was interpreted only according to their presuppositions. They do not even know if the giraffe evolved from anything. No one reported seeing this evolution take place. The fossil evidence consisted of bones, skulls, and teeth of fully formed antelope-like animals and fully formed giraffes. The ancestral connection was simply made in the imaginations of the evolutionists, imaginations that were not and never are grounded in the physical world. Next section, levels of scientific knowledge. Evolutionists continually draw parallels between valid scientific theories and their evolutionary theories in an attempt to gain respectability for themselves and their theories. The authors admit that, quote, each of these theories has unanswered questions at their margins that scientists continue to explore. What is the pace of evolution? End quote. But they refuse to address the elephant in the room, not a marginal issue at all, which is the question of whether macroevolution has any basis whatsoever in true science. The construction of knowledge about evolution, certainty and uncertainty. Many people have different definitions for science than do evolutionists with their methodological naturalism. Here is the definition from one common American dictionary. Science, noun, to know. 1. Systemized knowledge derived from observation, study, etc. 2. A branch of knowledge, especially one that systemizes facts, principles, and methods. 3. Skill or technique. Similar definitions are commonly found in most standard American dictionaries. A definition for science often used by creation scientists is: science means knowledge, not speculative philosophy or naturalism. The essence of the scientific method is measurement, observation, repeatability. The great philosopher of science, Karl Popper, stresses that falsifiability is the necessary criterion of genuine science. That is, a hypothesis must, at least in principle, be testable and capable of being refuted if it is truly scientific. And of course, that rules out evolution as science, because all the so-called evolution that has ever taken place in history, allegedly, took place long before human beings with the ability to make records of what they saw ever came around. So nobody has ever seen evolution happen in action, which means that nobody has written it down as a historically occurring event, and nobody can set up an experiment to verify or falsify that evolution indeed occurs as the evolution paradigm describes it. But let's get back to this book here. These definitions are based on the root Latin for the word, showing that science means knowledge. The evolutionists would have Christians ignore or reject the special knowledge that they have access to because of their faith, in order that they may know the mystery of God, namely Christ, in whom are hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. Colossians 2, 2b through 3. To accept evolution in millions of years and the evolutionist definition for science, we see that not only does the Bible need to be rejected, but also does God himself. There is uncertainty in science, even in creation science, but there is no uncertainty in Christ and the Bible. Christians must never lose sight of this fact when asked by evolutionists or anyone to come to a so-called neutral position of rejecting the Bible and what it tells us about our Creator God and his creation. Rejecting the Bible is not a neutral position, it is an atheistic position. Non-scientific interpretations of science. It is my position that naturalism is a wrong worldview, diametrically opposed in every important aspect to the right worldview of biblical Christianity. Naturalism requires a blind faith and I'm struggling to read. And has at its basis a desire to reject the creator God of the universe. The worldview of naturalism is not, therefore, based on truth, as is biblical Christianity. John 14:6. When people base their thinking on untruths, they will naturally interpret evidences incorrectly and get the wrong answers. This fact is illustrated again in the Evolution Dialogues on page 106, where the authors present what they believe are scientific interpretations of geological and biological evidences. They say, the Earth appears to be 4.6 billion years old, which is long enough for humans to have evolved through natural processes from the first living organisms. With a prevailing definition that science is knowledge rather than speculative philosophy, we can easily see that this statement is not scientific. The Earth is presupposed to be 4.6 billion years old, and there is no valid scientific evidence that 4.6 billion years would be long enough for human evolution, which itself is presupposed. This statement is a naturalistic fable, not a scientific interpretation. Similarly, they write, the DNA code is essentially the same for all living organisms on Earth due to their common descent from a single ancestor. This, too, is not a scientific statement, but naturalistic philosophy based on the atheistic presuppositions discussed throughout this book. The DNA code is different in some aspect or another for every different life form, or they would look the same, which they do not. Common sense and biblical interpretations of the homologies involved argue life was engineered by a common designer who used a common informational building block of life, DNA, to make various kinds of life that all had to be able to survive on a single planet, Earth. The authors are misinformed or are attempting to mislead when they write that, quote, science is also a collective endeavor. They check each other's work, reconfirm or disconfirm observations, and critique each other's analyses. Page 107. It is my observation that this collectivism is just an idealistic goal that is seldom attained, whether it is good or bad. The driving force behind science is the pursuit of money and the need of the scientists to publish or perish. In the field of evolution, the only real agreement is that evolution is a quote-unquote fact, with little agreement on any detailed aspect of the so-called fact. The late Dr. Henry Morse published a book in 1997 with literally thousands of secular quotes concerning evolution that strongly document the fact that there is no agreement in secular science on any segment of the macroevolutionary theories, past or present. This should be expected for a theory that is not based on true science. I do not believe that all creation science is true because creation scientists are as likely to make mistakes as are secularist evolutionists. The only difference is that creation scientists have the big advantage of beginning their science with the words of God rather than the words of men. The process of checking each other's scientific work is called replication. Here is what a couple of researchers named Broad and Wade concluded about that process. Replication is not a normal scientific procedure. It is undertaken only in special circumstances, such as with results of unusual importance or when fraud is suspected on other grounds. My research of evolutionary scientific articles has confirmed that this is the case, and even some very suspect science is seldom replicated. I believe for two reasons. First, evolutionary science is not real science, so there is usually nothing to replicate. Since the conclusions are all presupposed, most of what is written is of a speculative nature, and so there is nothing experimental that can be done to determine the truth of the interpretations. As mentioned, how would one scientifically prove what happened in a beginning that cannot be duplicated? Secondly, in those cases where there is work of an experimental nature, replication is not usually done because only the original researcher gains any fame or remuneration from the work. There is seldom any monetary incentive for someone to redo a work that has been already published. Some of the research I did that led me to come to these conclusions can be found in the work I did on Archaeopteryx. See DVD Archaeopteryx, What Was It? I found that the secular researchers all started with evolutionary presuppositions and then did their work in an effort to prove their assumptions were correct. Since I had different presuppositions, I came up with different conclusions. I have not made these claims concerning the reasons for no replication with regard to all science, just what is normally identified as evolutionary science. I do not really know that much about the details of operation for the fields of normal secular science, although Broad and Wade indicated that examples of fraud and cheating can be found most anywhere. In the prologue, I touched on the hysteria prevalent in evolutionary circles these days. I agree with the authors of the evolution dialogues that every scientist operates with a worldview, but I disagree that personal bias has any way of being balanced out in the current naturalism-only academic climate for the study of origins evidences. This is because not all the scientific input is allowed to be considered. Any interpretation at odds with the evolutionary presuppositions is not allowed in the halls or academic publications of those in control, such as AAAS and others like them. The attitude of those who work to exclude creation science is expressed very well by this quote. Creationists often complain that their theories and their colleagues are discriminated against by educators. As a matter of fact, creationism should be discriminated against. No advocate of such propaganda should be trusted to teach science classes or administer science programs anywhere under any circumstances. Furthermore, if any are now doing so, they should be dismissed. I am glad this kind of discrimination is finally catching on, and I hope the practice becomes much more vigorous and widespread in the future. Which it did, because this book originally came out in 2010. This second edition we're reading through came out in 2014. It got worse. And this extreme bias is not exactly... let me read that again. And this extreme bias is not exacted exclusively against creationists. Increasingly, anyone who expresses any doubt in Darwinian evolution is subjected to penalties such as degree denial and other career-ending actions. In the book Slaughter of the Dissidents, Dr. Jerry Bergman documents what he describes as hate crimes against people, not just creationists, who have serious doubts about the validity of neo-Darwinism. These Darwin doubters are under continuing attack by the Darwin fundamentalists who control academia. Bergman describes many of the current cases where Darwin doubters are excluded from the table of ideas in academia by the following types of behaviors and actions. 1. Derogatory and inappropriate comments. 2. Denial of admittance to graduate programs. 3. Denial of degrees. 4. Denial of deserved promotion. 5. Censorship of Darwin critical works from libraries and schools. 6. Firings, terminations, and denial of tenure. 7. Demotions. 8. Threats and personal intimidation. Dr. Bergman believes that the evidence shows that the situation in academia is much worse than described in the popular movie on the same topic titled Expelled, No Intelligence Allowed with Ben Stein. Eventually, the Slaughter series is planned to consist of 5 volumes, each close to 500 pages long, with about 1,000 footnotes each. And I have the first 3 volumes of the Slaughter of the Dissident series in my personal library. I need to investigate to see if a volume 4 and 5 exist, and if it does, I'll get my hands on it. And just so you guys know, in the future, probably in July, in the second half of July at the earliest, I'm probably going to start a whole new live stream series going through the Slaughter of the Dissidents series. We'll start with the first book, obviously, since that's the most popular and well-known one. And that's a big book, so we'll be making our way through that for a long time to come. But let's continue on with the creation dialogues, because we are getting close to the end of the current chapter. As a biblical Christian, I expect that my views will be attacked just as Jesus warned. If the world hates you, keep in mind that it hated me first. John 15:18. Peter put it this way: However, if you suffer as a Christian, do not be ashamed, but praise God that you bear his name, that you bear that name. 1 Peter 4:16. But in the United States of America, its citizens are supposed to be protected from the sort of abhorrent discrimination that is being leveled at anyone in academia who disputes the fact, quote unquote, of evolution in millions of years. Today, secular science is not working to exclude bias from its educational system. It is instead working to do the opposite by attempting to establish methodological naturalism as its fundamental and defining religion. The Expelled movie showed an evolutionist philosopher of science, Michael Ruse, interviewed, who said he believed life came about on the backs of crystals. Ruse also wrote, "Evolution is promoted by its practitioners as more than mere science. Evolution is promulgated as an ideology, a secular religion, a full-fledged alternative to Christianity with meaning and morality. Evolution is a religion." End quote. Christians must realize that evolution is a replacement for Christ. As a religion, evolution offers no spiritual help, a morality surreptitiously borrowed from Christianity, next to no scientific explanation for life, and absolutely no hope. I realized this in 1984, and my path to the truth could be described as being somewhat similar to that expressed by another engineer by the name of Henry Morris, who wrote, "The so-called evidences for evolution crumbled away when closely examined and critically analyzed. They certainly were not comparable to the evidence supporting the laws and principles upon which engineers must base their designs. These must be empirically tested and proven before use. The design of a dam or a bridge cannot be based on armchair philosophizing or a leap of faith extrapolating, as is true of macroevolutionary theory. On the other hand, the concept of a creator as the explanation of the scientific evidence was eminently satisfying both intellectually and emotionally, and so I became a creationist." End quote. The effects of evolutionary thinking and indoctrination are not neutral on society either. Some of the more obvious detrimental effects are: 1. In the eyes of many, animals have become equal to humans. This makes sense if we believe that we have evolved from the same common ancestor as animals rather than created in the image of God. Number 2, human lives have been devalued to the point that abortion is not a moral issue for many people. This follows from the evolutionary concept that babies in the womb are nothing more than blobs of tissue. About 51 million babies have been aborted in the United States since the Roe v. Wade decision. The current American president and his administration have decided that embryonic stem cell research is a worthy pursuit, even though it is clear that this is murder in the same sense as is abortion. Of course, this is back when Obama was president. Number 3. There is no basis for right and wrong if one believes that evolution is true. Everything is relative then, and since our brains and thoughts are the results of accidents over billions of years, who is to say what is right and wrong? Number 4, marriage and family have become redefined to match the ideas of perverse minds rather than the dictates of a loving God. The result is many broken homes, dysfunctional families, and insecure children. Number 5, selfishness is becoming a larger problem as people are led to believe that they are the result of random chance events over millions of years. In the minds of many who accept the evolutionary concept, survival of the fittest is our creator. Methodological naturalism is not neutral science, and truth is not to be found in following its dictates. True science follows the correct interpretation of the evidence wherever it leads, even if it leads to the doorstep of a creator. Ah, sovereign Lord, you have made the heavens and the earth by your great power and outstretched arm. Nothing is too hard for you. Jeremiah 32:17. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is chapter 5 of the Creation Dialogues. Now, before we get to chapter 6, I am going to give a little bit of a promo here in case you didn't see it towards the beginning of the stream. If you are interested in the TTOR content that I do outside of the Proverbs Guys Ministries YouTube channel and network, then I would encourage you to check out my YouTube channel, which you can see right here on screen. It is a small but growing channel, and I'm hoping to one day hit 1,000 subscribers. So if you'd like to support me in that endeavor, I would encourage you to subscribe to the channel, check out my other videos, leave your likes and comments on those videos, as well as on this live stream. Let's all grow together. There's also my Spotify account, which you can find if you explore my YouTube channel. There's also my Rumble channel, which you can find also by exploring that, or just by exploring Rumble, the website. There's also my BitChute channel, which you can see right here. I have a pretty sizable channel with over 2,300 subs and over 827,000 total video views. Plus, I've been uploading videos to this channel since late 2017. So almost all of my old videos, many of my videos from my original YouTube channel, as well as ones that were only on alt tech channels and never on YouTube before, you can find all of those here. There is lots of gold to explore and find on my BitChute channel. So I would encourage you, if you haven't already, subscribe to my BitChute channel and check out my content there as well. And then as far as social media goes, you can follow me on Creation Social, which is my own Twitter alternative that I run personally. So it is a free speech site that is very friendly to Christians, but it's also friendly to anyone who wants to share content and talk about stuff. Then, of course, there's my Twitter account, which you can find here on the screen. My handle is TTOR_official. And then there's my Gab account, which is my handle is @TTOR. I have over 1,300 followers there. I would encourage you to follow me there as well. Same with Getter, Twitter alternative in the alt tech scene, over 400 followers there. Share all my content there. Hopefully I'll see you guys there as well. And then, of course, there's my Truth Social account, which I maintain and share my content on. So this is another good place to follow me. And so with that, I think I'm actually going to go grab some water and give you guys a little bit of a music break because, you know, this is a lot of work that we're doing here. I can see here on screen or on the chat, Sean Robinson 728 said, Jesus did all the work so that you could have eternal life. He loves you. Trust in Jesus. Performance not yours, and you will be saved. Now, I butchered the reading of that, but I know what you were saying there, Sean, and thank you for sharing that. That is all true. Now, let me get some good music going. And I got good songs. Now that I make music, I got some stuff to play, but let's play some music that was not in the intro. Let's pick some good stuff. I'm going to put in, I think I'm going to put in My Shield. My Shield is a song that I based on a psalm. I want to say Psalm 32 is what it's based on, but I could be remembering the wrong psalm. But anyway, I'm going to play some music for you guys, and I'll be right back.
Transgression is forgiven, whose sin is covered, his soul to the heavens. When silence overwhelms and the weight pulls down, I confess my sins, turn my heart from the crown. You are my hiding place, save me from the flood. Rejoice in the Lord, all righteous and true, shout for joy, lift your voice for salvation's anew. In tribulation, he is my shield. In darkness and despair, to him I shall yield. For when I kept silent, my bones did decay. Yeah, I groaned all day long, tortured in dismay. The hand hand of the Lord pressed heavy on my soul. Yet by His grace I seek to be made whole. You guide me with wisdom. Through shadows I tread. Rejoice in the Lord, all righteous and true. Shout for joy, lift your voice for salvation to you. In tribulation, He is my shield. In darkness and despair, to Him I shall yield. The wicked will suffer, but mercy will reign. In truth I am saved from bondage that day.
All right. And because I need to rest my vocal cords just a little bit more, we're going to listen to another song I did a while ago called A Guiding Hand. And I think you guys will enjoy this one.
In shadows deep, where sinners tread, through darkest nights, the lost and dead, a beacon shines, His love displayed. No matter how far, we can't evade. Through every trial, His grace is near. Lord, You're here in hell and sky. In every whisper, hear the cry. Through fire and pain, our fears will break. With heavy hearts, our souls awake. In valleys low and mountains high, when faith is weak, we cry, we sigh. His whispers echo, a guiding hand. No matter the storm, He helps us stand. In every heartbeat, His truth we find. Lord, You're here in hell and sky. In every whisper, hear the cry. Through fire and pain,
Alrighty, so one more song to rest my vocal cords before we get into chapter 6 of the Creation Dialogues is a little song from my recent album, Break the Silence, called The Joke Is on You. Please try not to take this song too seriously.
Sixth grade talent show, I tripped on stage. They laughed so hard, they choked on rage. Mom said act normal while slamming doors. Dad left checks but never showed up for scores. Now I juggle fire and alleyway light just to feel someone watching me tonight. You call it madness, call it sin, but no one asked what hurt began. I just wanted you to see me, not the monster you made me. Every joke's a hand reached out. You just never turned around. Sent a Valentine to the girl next door. Found it burned on a kitchen floor. Too weird, she texted, delete it fast. So I lit the whole block, laughing last. The therapist said stop seeking proof, while I bled out on her office roof. No one comes when you're the punchline, till you chaos starts to climb. My joy's a wound dressed in grease, paying red, still hoping you'd see past the thread. I just wanted you to see me, not the ghost you refuse to free. Every lapse a name I scream. Will you finally know my name? Sometimes I rehearse a quiet line. I'm tired of being funny, but silence scares me more than screams. At least then I know I'm I just wanted you to see me, not the lie you needed me to be. This smile, it's all I have left. So laugh with me, or leave me alone.
Alrighty, we are ready to resume the action. We are ready to resume the Creation Dialogues. And we're going to be reading from chapter 6, which is called Christian Worldviews. Now, let's put up that nice, lovely visual aid that we've been using so far. All right, there we go. All right. Now, back to the Creation Dialogues. Chapter 6, Christian Worldviews. The anti-Bible bias of the authors and sponsors of the Evolution Dialogues must be evident to any reader by Chapter 6, even a casual observer of the Origins controversy. It is a bit strange to read a chapter pretending to explain what Christianity is about from such a bias. In Chapter 6 of the Creation Dialogues, I hope to correct some of the author's many errors and omissions concerning the Bible and explain how critical the Bible is to the development of a proper Christian worldview. Angela's story. Angela now indicates that she believes she can select a trait and create a testable hypothesis for how it may have evolved through natural selection. She has arrived at the point of no return, for if she believes that evolutionists have developed and tested or can develop and test hypotheses for macroevolution, her indoctrination into the evolutionist faith is complete. Her spiritual advisor, Phil, next moves her into considerations of social and psychological evolution and God's place in that evolution. Since Phil does not take the Bible as authoritative on these matters, it should be no surprise that he doesn't have any answers. And for Phil to describe God as being a her rather than as a him is evidence of his total lack of confidence in and respect for God's word. Finally, Angela shows that she has total faith in the evolutionary worldview by saying that she believes faith itself is something that has evolved. Biblical Christians do not have perfect knowledge and do not believe they have perfect knowledge, but they do believe that the one who does have perfect knowledge is revealed authoritatively and inerrantly in the Bible. Many Christian students, whether in grade school, high school, or college, who are indoctrinated to believe evolution will eventually lose their faith in God and become fools. I know that when I was a young person, evolutionary indoctrination had a big effect on me, and by accepting that faith, I became a fool. The fool says in his heart, there is no God. Psalm 14:1. Christian worldviews. Defining Christianity. James Ossuary. The faith of Christian believers is not primarily dependent on material evidence. People of all stripes often don't believe material evidence anyway. As Jesus said to the Pharisee Nicodemus, I have spoken to you of earthly things and you do not believe. How then will you believe if I speak of heavenly things? John 3:12. However, the authors may have jumped the gun when they wrote, page 114, that the James Ossuary was exposed as a fake, end quote. The Israeli forgery trial for the James Ossuary bone box lasted over 4 years, involved 75 witnesses and over 9,000 pages of testimony. And the latest on this ossuary, as of this writing, is as follows. In October 2008, after more than 3 years in court, Judge Farkash advised the prosecution to drop the case, which would result in a major embarrassment for the Israeli Antiquities Authority and the Israeli police. The defendants, who have maintained their innocence throughout the whole ordeal, appeared to have been vindicated along with the Biblical Archaeological Review, which, among others, has consistently supported the authenticity of the inscription on the ossuary. That such a discovery would receive much public scrutiny and bias is not unexpected, given the political and religious conflicts that surround the historicity of Jesus Christ. Furthermore, human endeavors like archaeology will always be fallible, and authenticating this artifact to the satisfaction of all may not be possible. Nevertheless, the ossuary remains as support for the existence of Jesus and the belief of the first century church in his resurrection. End quote. Foundations of Christianity. Story, noun, plural, res. Historia, the Greek historia, narrative. 1. The telling of an event or events account, narration. 2. A joke. 3. A fictitious narrative shorter than a novel. 4. The plot of a novel, play, etc. 5. Colloquial, a falsehood. And 6. A news report. The reason I have inserted the above dictionary definitions for the word story is because of the different nuances of the word, especially in the present context. For example, when non-believers talk about the stories of the Bible, they generally mean something other than the telling of an event or events account, narration. In many cases, the word story is automatically assumed to mean a falsehood, a joke, or something just made up. Some Bible stories, such as the parables of Jesus, may be hypothetical, with the value being in the underlying moral or teaching. Hopefully, most Christians have an understanding of this differentiation. The authors of the evolution dialogues do not place a high historical value on the word story when they are writing about the stories of the Bible or the story of Jesus Christ. Even many Christians have compromised to the place that the meaning of all biblical stories are to be interpreted in some sort of an allegorical, symbolic, or mythical manner. This sort of compromise is very prevalent with regard to the first 11 chapters of Genesis. These 11 chapters are the ones that bear most directly on the origins issues, which is the subject of the AAS position and about which this book is focused. The biblical creationist position is Genesis chapters 1 through 11 are plainly historical narrative, are foundational to the Christian faith, and are not allegory, poetry, or myth. Numerous studies by theological experts have verified that the Genesis accounts are indeed historical narrative. For example, the RATE, Radioisotopes in the Age of the Earth group, did scholarly statistical analysis research of the original Hebrew language that determined that Genesis 1:1 through 2:3 is narrative and not poetry. Most Hebrew scholars agree that the first 11 chapters of Genesis were written to convey the meaning that is plainly there, as evidenced by this quote. Quote, "Probably, so far as I know, there is no professor of Hebrew or Old Testament at any world-class university who does not believe that the writers of Genesis 1 through 11 intended to convey to their readers the ideas that A, creation took place in a series of 6 days, which were the same as the days of 24 hours we now experience. B, the figures contained in the Genesis genealogies provided by simple addition a chronology from the beginning of the world up to later stages in the biblical story. And C, Noah's flood was understood to be worldwide and it extinguished all human and animal life except for those on the ark." Or, to put it negatively, the apologetics arguments which suppose the days of creation to be eras of time, the figures of years not to be chronological, and the flood to be merely a local Mesopotamian flood, are not taken seriously by any such professors as far as I know. The only thing I would say to qualify this is that most such professors may avoid much involvement in that sort of argument, and so may not say much explicitly about it one way or another. End quote. This collection of stories that are included in the Bible are very unique in many ways. One way that they are unique is that the collection is one author, God, and one main theme. This theme is the message of salvation through the Lord Jesus Christ. Good old water. To see this theme, one has to take the time and effort to study the Bible, and those who do not study it are not likely to see or understand this theme. The Apostle Paul puts it this way: "They are darkened in their understanding and separated from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them due to the hardening of their hearts." Ephesians 4:18. Until a person's heart is open to God's word, the gospel message is blocked to them, as Paul wrote, "And even if our gospel is veiled to those who are perishing, the God of this age has blinded the minds of unbelievers so they cannot see the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God." 2 Corinthians 4:3-4. Therefore, it is not surprising that the writers of the evolution dialogues would leave out so much about the basis for true Christianity. Jesus was not a super intelligent homosexual, as Elton John would have you believe. He was not just a smart rabbi who told parables and had religious visions. He was and is God. He came into his creation to be the God-man, the only possible perfect sacrifice for the sins of those who accept him. While on earth, he performed miracles, was crucified, was dead and buried, and was resurrected after 3 days. He now sits on the right hand of God the Father as judge of all. Evolution or any other of the imaginations of men cannot and will not replace Christ, and this fact is the bottom line truth of Christianity. This fact is revealed to us through God's special revelation, the Bible, and a perfectly coordinated general revelation, the creation. Christian belief in history. The historicity of Jesus Christ is always an issue of those who want to refute or minimize the Bible. However, the Bible is strongly authenticated by archaeological evidence, and the historicity of Christ is attested to by much secular and Jewish history. Dr. Henry Morris wrote, Problems still exist, of course, in the complete harmonization of archaeological material with the Bible, but none so serious as to not bear real promise of imminent solution through further investigation. It must be extremely significant that, in view of the great mass of corroborative evidence regarding the biblical history of these periods, there exists today not one unquestionable find of archaeology that proves the Bible to be in error on any point. Christian apologist Josh McDowell writes concerning Christ's history that, quote, many ancient secular writers mention Jesus and the movement he birthed. The fact that they are usually antagonistic to Christianity makes them especially good witnesses, since they have nothing to gain by admitting the historicity of the events surrounding a religious leader and his following, which they disdain. End quote. McDowell then proceeds to document evidence from ancient secular writers, including the following. 1. Roman historian Cornelius Tacitus, AD 55 to 120. Lucian of Samosata, a Greek satirist of the latter half of the 2nd century. 3. Suetonius, who was a Roman historian under Hadrian. 4. Pliny the Younger, AD 112, who was the governor of Bithynia in Asia Minor. 5. Thales, who wrote a history of the Eastern Mediterranean world about AD 52. 6. Phlegon, who wrote a history called Chronicles, a portion preserved by Julius Africanus. And 7. Mara bar Serapin, a Syrian and probably Stoic philosopher, wrote of Jesus in a letter to his son after AD 70. It is noteworthy that when the biblical Jewish, for example, let me reread that because I pronounced that wrong. It is noteworthy that when the biblical Jewish and even, I'm reading that triple wrong. It is noteworthy that when the biblical Jewish, for example, Josephus, and extra-biblical Christian documents are included, more evidence exists for the historicity of Jesus than most, maybe all, other famous people of his time. And the historicity is almost never questioned by anyone for all of these others. It is an indication of the anti-Christian bias to portray the life of Jesus as a, quote, story, end quote, as have the authors of the evolution dialogues. Jesus was and is very real. Even the opponents of Christianity seldom doubted the historicity of Jesus until the 18th and 19th centuries, during the time when the ideas of uniformitarianism, millions of years, and organic evolution were conceived and formalized. I doubt that this fact is just a coincidence. Christians who believe the Bible is God's plainly written and understandable word have no problem with the historicity of Jesus because of the many assurances actually written in the Bible about that actuality. For example, the Apostle John wrote, Jesus did many other miraculous signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not recorded in this book. But these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have eternal life in his name. John 20, 30 through 31. John also wrote, Jesus did many other things as well. If every one of them were written down, I suppose that even the whole world would not have room for the books that would be written. John 21, 25. Some may interpret this statement as hyperbole, but I think it is an indication of how many books would be needed to compile all of the information about Christ and his creative acts in the beginning. See John 1, 1 through 3. Context of knowing. The authors of the Evolution Dialogues write on page 121, the focus of religion, its context of knowing, is on what things mean rather than on what they are, end quote. I do not think that claim is true for biblical Christianity. The point of Jesus' miracles was not just one of his being able to make reality look or act different, unnatural, so as to teach a moral point. No, when the Creator walked on water, turned water into wine, or raised people from the dead, he was demonstrating to all that he was indeed who he said he was. Therefore, he was providing every reason for the witnesses at that time to believe unto martyrdom as well as unto their salvation. The fact that Christianity and the Bible have survived so long is testimony to the success of this initial mode of operation. Christianity is not a religion that is separate from the creation. It is a religion that actually explains the creation, the purposes for it, and God's long-term plans for it. I do not believe that the examples given for different forms of knowledge are relevant to the discussion at hand. The reason for this is that the science behind macroevolution is bogus. It is not a correct analogy to infer that the science that explains the boiling of water or the science that explains the biochemistry of nutrition is comparable to the so-called science that evolutionists use to defend their theory in the evolution dialogues. Biblical creationists have no problem with true science because it is perfectly compatible with the word of the Creator. Evolution and millions of years are not compatible with either of God's revelations. Evolution and millions of years are contradictory to both of God's revelations. It is time that evolutionists express some humility and cease their attempts to ignore God. Defining religion. Altruism, noun. Alter, other. Unselfish concern for the welfare of others. Evolutionists conclude that altruism is the result of evolution of mankind in his battle to survive, survival of the fittest. People act kindly towards others only in a selfish way, since that enhances survival on the group level. Page 122. This sort of thinking concerning selfishness matches what the Bible tells us about the sinful nature of humans. The heart is deceitful above all things and is beyond cure. Who can understand it? Jeremiah 17:9. The big difference is that the Bible tells us this deceitfulness is the result of turning away from God and not the result of natural selection in millions of years. In the beginning, everything was very good, and then came the fall. Christians should therefore exhibit altruism not from a position of selfishness, but because they are commanded to do so. Jesus said, "Love your neighbor as yourself," Matthew 22:39. The Old Testament law was provided because mankind had demonstrated that determining right from wrong was not possible without God's help. Paul wrote, through the law, we became conscious of sin, Romans 3:20b. Evolutionists have no logical way of determining what is right or wrong and what is moral or immoral if they really believe everything came by accident from nothing. My observation is they have adopted religious morality and then ascribed it to natural selection. And now we're about to get into the final section of the chapter. Faith as the starting point. Contested knowledge. The authors admit that all knowledge systems depend on faith of some sort. For Christianity, faith in the teachings of the Bible and faith in Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior are requirements. This is a known aspect of the faith and a stipulation of the promises of our loving God. Accepting the presuppositions of evolution, however, places people into a position where they must have a totally blind faith. Since naturalism requires a natural explanation for all natural events and all events are defined by the faith to be natural, the miracles, the providence, and the possibility of a personal relationship to God are a priori ruled out. This then forces evolutionists to believe in spontaneous generation, which science has shown to be impossible. It forces evolutionists to believe in macroevolution when no scientific evidence exists that it has ever occurred or could ever occur. It forces evolutionists to reject all the overwhelming evidence that the Earth is young and not billions of years old, and for most evolutionists, it forces them to reject the creator God of the universe. While it is true that the Bible indicates that there is nothing new under the sun, Ecclesiastes 1:9, and that God does not change, it is not true that evolutionists are open to changes in their core beliefs from the results of scientific testing. Evolutionary scientists have presuppositions that they are not willing to modify for any reason, and this fact means that the results of their tests will always rule out God in the Bible. This conflict is not one between science and Christianity, but rather between non-science, nonsense, and Christianity. The authors paint the origins controversy as a controversy between tradition and experience. a tradition that depicts God as creator intervening in nature's history versus the experience of successful explanations of nature's history without reference to God. Page 125. Biblical creationists ask, where is the evidence that evolutionary theories have successfully explained nature's history? And we are right back to the crux of the issue again. The evidence is presupposed, not proven. The belief system is one of blind faith and not from scientific experimentation. The religion of naturalism is false and truth is not in it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes Chapter 6 of the Creation Dialogues. And oh boy, oh boy, what a chapter that was. Very much so. At this point, I think we're going to call it good on this reading of the Creation Dialogues. And I'm going to invite anyone still watching to come on into the stream, whether you be watching on Rumble or on BitChute or on the Proverbs Guys YouTube channel. Come one, come all. I'm going to go ahead and grab that invite link, and I will put it in right now so that you guys can join. I might as well go do that on BitChute as well. If I just take a second here. All right. Hopefully you guys didn't hear my mic. And then I'll just put the invite link there on BitChute. And there it is, allegedly. Well, it didn't show up in the description box or in the chat there, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and put this in the Rumble chat. So anyone watching on Rumble can feel free to join. And anyone who's watching, feel free to join in whenever you want. I'm going to go ahead and take this opportunity to play some more music while people join in. Oh, it's a shame that FTJ Media went down, because there was a guy who was following me there who was participating in these shows, and I wish he was here. I really do. But I'm going to grab some music that we can play here. Music that will not get this channel dinged on YouTube. Just going to go find it first. I think we'll go ahead and pull out some Nightcore music. This will be from the YouTube channel Aiden7. And this is their cover of the 1,000-Foot Crutch song, Courtesy Call.
Hey, yo, here comes the danger up in this club. When we get started, man, we ain't gonna stop. We gonna turn it out till it gets too hot. Everybody sing, hey, yo, tell them turn it up till they can't no more. Let's get this thing shaking like a disco ball. This is your last warning, a courtesy call. Hey, yo, here comes the danger up in this club. When we get started, man, we ain't gonna stop. We gonna turn it out till it gets too hot. Everybody sing, hey, yo, tell them turn it up till they can't no more. Let's get this thing shaking like a disco ball. This is your last warning, a courtesy call. I am not afraid of the storm that comes my way. When it hits, it shakes me to the core and makes me stronger than before. It's not a question about trust, but will you stand with us? Can you feel gets too hot. Everybody sing, hey, yo. Tell them turn it up till they can't no more. Let's get this thing shaking like a disco ball. This is your last warning, a courtesy call. Hey, yo. Here comes the danger up in this club. When we get started, man, we ain't gonna stop. We're gonna turn it out till it gets too hot. Everybody sing, hey, yo. Tell them turn it up till they can't no more. Let's get this thing shaking like a disco ball. This is your last warning, a courtesy call.
All right, and just to give you guys a little more music for thought, we'll listen to the 8 and 7 cover of the 1,000-Foot Crutch song, Be Somebody. Enjoy.
I'm just the girl inside, the woman, not exactly who you think I am. Trying to trace my steps back here again so many times. I'm just a speck inside your hand. You came and made me who I am. I remember where it all began so clearly. I feel a million miles away. Still you connect me in your way. And you created me something I would have never seen. When I could only see the floor, you made my window a door. So when they say they don't believe, I hope that they see you and me. After all the lights go down, I'm just the words, you are the sound. A strange type of chemistry, you've become a part of me. And when I sit alone at night, your thoughts burn through me like a fire. You're the only one who knows who I really am. We all wanna be somebody. We just need a taste of who we are. We all wanna be somebody. We're willing to go, but not that far. And we're all see-through just like glass, and we can shatter just as fast. That light's been burned out for a while. I still see it every time I pass. It was lost in the corners of my mind, behind a box of reasons why. I never doubted it was there, but just took a little time to find. And even when I feel a million miles away, still you connect me in your way. And you created me something I would have never seen. When I could only see the floor, you made my window a door. So when they say they don't believe, I hope that they see you and me. After all the lights go down, I'm just the words, you are the sound. A strange type of chemistry, how you've become a part of me. And when I sit alone at night, your thoughts burn through me like a fire. You're the only one who knows who I really am. We all wanna be somebody. We just need a taste of who we are. We all wanna be somebody. We're willing to go, but not that
All right, so I have decided on a course of action to end this stream. Since nobody is joining, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play one of my recent creationism videos for you guys so that you can see the kind of content that I do on my own channel outside of the Proverbs Guys Ministries network. And let me just get the sharing set up. Just so you guys can see what I'm looking at. We're going to be looking at my recent video debunking Frank Turek's arguments against young earth creationism. And so with that being the case, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my whole screen, share the system audio, and I'm just going to let it fly. It's about a 25-minute video from beginning to end, so this will basically be the rest of the live stream, and then we'll end things. So with that being said, I'll let it rip after I get this all set up. Hello there, everyone. If you're watching this video, then you are part of the TTOR army, an army that is building itself up one subscriber at a time. And if you haven't already, be sure to go check me out at these places over here. You can follow me at Creation Social, which is my own Twitter alternative that I run. You can follow me on Spotify. You can subscribe to me on BitChute. You can subscribe to me on Rumble. And you can follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter. And that is a great way to watch my content as it comes out, catch any live streams that come up, and keep up with anything that I might be posting about on social media outside of my videos. Plus, it's always good to have more people come over to Creation Social, so hopefully I'll see you at all those places. With that being said, today's topic is a topic that I have not discussed in a video in a long time, but I've made videos about in the past, and that is Frank Turek. Now, the reason why we're talking about Frank Turek today is that recently on his Twitter account, Frank Turek shared a 3-minute video where he was having a Q&A session, and one person in particular asked him if he was a young earth creationist, meaning that he believed that the days of creation were ordinary days like we experience today, or as they call it, literal days. And so I watched this video all the way through, and I was not very impressed, for lack of a better term. Frank Turek said a lot of things that old earth creationists have been saying for literally my whole life to justify their old earth creationism beliefs. But we're going to go through this entire video, every second of it, and we're going to respond to the various things we see therein. So, starting at the very beginning and going through the first 64 seconds of the video, we see the following.
So first I want to ask you a question. Would you consider yourself a young earth creationist in that you think Genesis means that sorry, losing my words. Mm-hmm. Would you say you believe that Genesis is literal and that God created the world in 6 literal days?
I'm absolutely certain the universe is at least 64 years old.
Okay.
All right, when I throw my mom in there, it's at least 88 years old.
Okay.
All right, look. The Christians are going to argue both sides of this. Here's what I think is true, and could I be wrong? Of course. What does the first verse of the Bible say?
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.
Okay, when did God create the heavens and the earth?
In the beginning.
When was the beginning?
It doesn't say.
It doesn't say. What does the next verse say?
It says, and the earth was formed and without void.
Yes, the earth was formless without void. So we've gone to creating the whole universe in verse 1, and now suddenly we're zooming in on the earth. How long did that take?
We don't know.
We don't know. This is why John Lennox at Oxford University in his book, 7 Days That Divide the World, says, the Bible leaves the age of the universe indeterminate.
So, as we saw in that particular clip, which you can see on screen just happened, the college student asks Frank if Frank considers himself to be a young earth creationist, primarily asking if Frank Turek believes that the days of creation are ordinary days like we experience today. Frank Turek at first gives a humorous, sarcastic answer designed to relieve any potential tension with the questioner or with the people in the room. But then Frank Turek says that the Bible doesn't say in Genesis 1:1 when the beginning was, so the age of the universe is unknown in relation to the Bible. And that's what the word indeterminate means. It means we don't know. So there's a few things I'd like to say about that. First off, not a single young earth creationist that I know or have heard of has ever argued that Genesis 1 or any verse within it tells the reader how old the earth and universe is. What I and every other young earth creationist apologist has ever argued is that when you add up the genealogies and time spans that we find in Genesis, Exodus, and 1 Kings chapter 6 verse 1, you discover that the time between the creation of the universe and the 4th year of King Solomon's reign is 3,149 years. The 4th year of King Solomon's reign was 962 years before Jesus was born, and our current calendar starts with Jesus' birth, so 3,149 plus 962 plus 2026 means that based on the data provided by the Bible, the universe and earth are 6,137 years old. That is the actual argument that young earth creationists use to come up with the idea that the earth and universe are roughly 6,000 years old. Not a single young earth creationist that I know or have heard of ever says, well, Genesis 1 tells you how old the earth and universe is. This is a complete straw man that Frank Turek is presenting here when it comes to answering whether or not the days of creation were ordinary days like we experience today. More on that later. But secondly, I'd like to point out from this clip that quoting John Lennox instead of the Bible to justify saying that the Bible doesn't tell us how old the earth and universe are shows that Frank Turek values the opinions of men over the text of the Bible when it comes to the issue of origins. Thirdly, I'd like you to notice how in the beginning, and you'll see this throughout the video later on, Frank Turek says that he could be wrong about everything he is saying in this video regarding old versus young earth creationism. The reason why that Frank Turek does this is because Frank knows, and all knowledgeable old earth creationists know, that when you read the Bible in a straightforward and contextual manner and you don't reinterpret it in light of anything else, you will conclude that the text teaches a 6,000-year-old earth and universe. Therefore, Frank Turek has to reinterpret the text in light of the majority opinion of the scientific and academic community to justify his old earth creationism beliefs. And if you'd like to see exactly how old earth creationists do it, I would encourage you to check out one of my older videos from 4 years ago titled William Lane Craig Lies About Bible Interpretation, Augustine, and Origin. And in this video, you will see clips of William Lane Craig admitting that old earth creationists are not supposed to reinterpret the Bible in light of anything outside of it. But then he'll go on to say that, well, we need to reinterpret the Bible through the lens of the worldview of modern science. Not the data, the worldview, which is another way of saying the majority opinion of the scientific and academic community. So William Lane Craig, in this video, if you watch it, you will see him admit that he does the very thing he says he's not supposed to do in order to justify his old earth creationism beliefs. Mainly, he reinterprets the Bible in light of the majority opinion of the scientific and academic community on origins. Now, it is over the next 39 seconds where we see Frank Turek say the following.
Could it be old? Could it be young? It could be either. The best data from the natural world, because God has written 2 books, as you know. He's written the book of nature and the book of the Bible. The best data is that the universe is old. Could we be wrong about that? I'm sure it's possible. The problem is, if you change the speed of light, which is one way we date how big the universe is and how old it is, you have to change all the other laws of physics with it. Is it possible that God could have done that? Of course it's possible. Did he do it? I don't know. But I don't think necessarily the Genesis 1 is teaching how old the universe is. In fact...
So, as we saw in that particular clip, Frank Turek argues that the data in the natural world, which is code speak for the scientific and academic community's majority opinion, says that the universe is billions of years old. Frank Turek then claims that in order for young Earth creationism to be true, all the scientific laws and anthropic constants would have to change, which is why he was giving the speed of light example. Now, Frank may think that the data of the natural world supports the universe being billions of years old, but as William Lane Craig revealed in my previously mentioned video that you saw on screen, old Earth creationists like Frank Turek know that they are not supposed to reinterpret the Bible in light of evolution and or billions of years, being the majority opinion of the scientific and academic community, which William Lane Craig calls the worldview of modern science. But old Earth creationists reinterpret the Bible in light of evolution and billions of years anyway in order to justify their old Earth creationism beliefs. The reason why they do this is because they view the scientific community as a higher authority than the Bible on origins. One old Earth creationist, the theistic evolutionist Perry Marshall, was willing to admit this in his 2015 book, Evolution 2.0. And on page 327 of Evolution 2.0, we see the following written by the theistic evolutionist Perry Marshall. Modern science speaks much more definitively about the age of the Earth than the Bible does, so it is perfectly legitimate to allow science to settle this question. So, as we can see, the theistic evolutionist Perry Marshall claims that the Bible is less definitive about the age of the Earth than modern science is, so modern science gets to be the arbiter of how old the Earth and universe are. Now, Frank Turek is not a theistic evolutionist like Perry Marshall, as far as I understand him. Frank Turek is a traditional old Earth creationist who rejects evolution, but he accepts deep time and billions of years, and to a degree he accepts Big Bang cosmology. That's like your traditional old Earth creationist. So Frank Turek doesn't twist the Bible and reinterpret it in light of evolution, but he does twist and reinterpret the Bible to make billions of years fit into it. And that's because, like Perry Marshall, like virtually all old Earth creationists, they view the opinions of men, the majority opinion of the scientific and academic community, as being more authoritative than the Bible on origins. We're not going to go into detail in this video, but one thing I have noticed over time is that when old Earth creationists like Frank Turek reject what the Bible says on origins and reinterpret it in light of billions of years and or evolution, what I have noticed happened over and over again is that these old Earth creationists start compromising on other things that the Bible teaches, to the point where some of them even went so far as to reject biblical inerrancy. But on to the second point about the clip we just saw. Frank's claim that all the laws of physics and the anthropic constants would have to change in order for young Earth creationism to be true commits the non sequitur fallacy. It does not logically follow from young Earth creationism being true that all the scientific laws and anthropic constants would have to change. In fact, the same Bible that teaches that the Earth and universe are roughly 6,000 years old also teaches the law of entropy. in Psalm 102, verses 25 through 27. The law of entropy is arguably the most irrefutable scientific law that we have. So if the Bible is teaching the law of entropy, and it's also at the same time teaching a 6,000-year-old Earth and universe, then obviously the laws of science and anthropic constants don't have to by default change in order for young Earth creationism to be true. Now, in case you don't believe me that the law of entropy is taught in Psalm 102, 25 through 27, let's actually look at the text of that passage, which says the following. In the beginning you laid the foundations of the earth, and the heavens are the work of your hands. They will perish, but you remain. They will all wear out like a garment. Like clothing you will change them, and they will be discarded, but you remain the same, and your years will never end. So in the passage, we can clearly see the Bible saying that the earth and the heavens will perish, but God will remain. That the universe, the heavens, and the earth will wear out like a garment. God will change them and they will be discarded. Now, the law of entropy in a nutshell teaches that the universe itself and everything in it, when left to its own devices over time, will naturally wear down, break down, and fall into disorder. Bible here is saying the same thing. The universe and earth will wear out like a garment over time, and they will eventually be discarded by God. So science has confirmed what Psalm 102, 25 and 26 says, that the universe and the earth are wearing out and that they will eventually be discarded. Now, we're going to look at a much longer segment, a 53-second segment, where Frank Turek makes a claim and argument that has to be responded to.
Many scholars now are saying that Genesis 1 is a polemic against the Egyptian creation stories. Because remember, the Bible's not written to us, it's written for us. Who is it written to?
It was written to Israel.
Yeah, it was written to people who had just come out of 400 years in Egypt, and they're walking through the desert. They're not asking the questions we're asking, right? They're not walking through the desert going, hey, I wonder how old this place is. You know, that's not their question. Their question is Yahweh the true God or the gods of Egypt the true God? And in Egypt, Egyptian creation stories, there's these superhero gods. They're inside the universe. They're pre-existent. We don't know where they came from. And somehow they have to fight one another in order to bring order to chaos. Moses comes along and says, no, God's outside the universe. He just speaks and he brings order to chaos. So some are saying it's a corrective on the Egyptian creation story.
So, as we saw in that particular clip, Frank Turek argues that Genesis is a polemic for the people of Israel that was written to combat the false gods of the Egyptians, and he claims that the people of Israel, to whom Genesis was written to, would not have had any interest or concern with the age of the universe and earth. Now, this is a cute story that Turek is telling, but it's all built on the foundation of his earlier claim that Genesis 1:1 doesn't tell us how old the universe is. We've already seen earlier in this video that no young earth creationists argue that Genesis 1 or any verse therein tells us how old the earth and universe is, and we've already seen the data in the Bible and in history that leads young earth creationists to the conclusion that the earth and universe are roughly 6,000 years old. So for Frank Turek to bring all this stuff up is completely irrelevant and is nothing more than an intellectual smokescreen to distract you from the problems with what he's said and with what he hasn't said. Which leads into my next point. Since Frank Turek doesn't make any more claims in the last 20 seconds of the video, I would like to point out how Frank Turek, like he's been doing for years, intentionally avoids dealing with the genealogies and time spans found in Genesis, Exodus, and 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 1. He also avoids dealing with passages like Exodus 28 through 11 and Exodus 31, 14 through 17, where God himself says that he made everything in 6 days when justifying his command to the Israelites to work 6 days and rest on the seventh. Frank Turek also avoids Numbers 12, 6 through 9, where God tells Aaron and Miriam that he did not speak in any kind of coded language to Moses when he revealed the Torah to Moses. So according to God himself, the text of Genesis 1:1 through 2:3, all the genealogies and time spans found in Genesis and Exodus, in all the parts where God says in Exodus that he made everything in 6 days, according to God himself in Numbers 12, 6 through 9, the text of those books are meant to be read in a straightforward manner, and you do not have to reinterpret them in light of anything else to figure out their true meaning. In other words, the text of those books means exactly what it says. Now, we're going to watch the last 20 seconds of the video because the college student who asked Frank Turek the question implies a claim that is worth responding to. Now, let's go ahead and watch that particular clip.
That's what I've always heard. Or that's what I've been hearing the last few years. So when some people say that it's only that it has to be a literal, someone who's studied a bit of hermeneutics, now I would kind of bring that into question, especially when studying the history. So thank you. I'm glad that you kind of agree with me to an extent.
All right, thank you, Cameron.
Thank you.
All right, so as we saw at the very end of the video, the student who asked Frank Turek the question said that once he studied hermeneutics, he couldn't believe the idea that the days of creation were ordinary days like we experience today. Now, most of my life, especially after I became a young Earth creationist and when I was still an old Earth creationist in my early 20s, old Earth creationists have been claiming that one of the reasons why young Earth creationists believe what they believe is that they don't understand hermeneutics. And the implication is that if they did, young Earth creationists would realize that the Bible allows for the universe and Earth to be billions of years old, and they wouldn't be young Earth creationists at that point. Now, let's give an English lesson to this college student because apparently he never got English taught to him. The word day has multiple meanings, and the context around it indicates which meaning applies in which situation. So, for example, if I say 6 days ago I got into a car accident, obviously I'm talking about 6 ordinary days like we experience today because the number 6 is attached to the word day in that sentence. Now, if I say on the morning of this day I was out hunting with my friends, well, we know the word day is an ordinary day like we experience today because I attached a time of day to the word day. But if I say something like, well, back in my day, video games were far more complex and interesting than modern video games, well then, obviously, the word day in that context is referring to a period of time longer than an ordinary day like we experience today. Why? Because I don't have a number or a time of day attached to the word day in that sentence. But what we read in the creation account should settle this once and for all because we see for the first 6 days of creation a number and time of day is attached to the word day. And on the 7th day of creation, a number is attached to it and it's spoken about in the past tense. So we have evening and morning the first day, evening and morning the second day, evening and morning the third day, evening and morning the fourth day, evening and morning the 5th day, evening and morning the 6th day, and then the 7th day. So the English language clearly indicates that the days of creation were ordinary days like we experience today because they have both a time of day and a number attached to each instance of the word day throughout the account. Now, just having a number attached to the word day by itself, or having a time of day attached to the word day by itself, would be a crystal clear positive indicator that the word day is an ordinary day like we experience today. And yet, for the first 6 days of the creation account, we have times of day and numbers attached to the word day, almost like God wanted to make crystal clear that those days were ordinary days like we experience today, because he knew at some point in the future, people like Frank Turek, people like William Lane Craig, people like John Lennox would come along later and try to convince Christians that the days of creation were not ordinary days like we experience today. So to that college student, that's my answer to his little, well, I studied hermeneutics and I can't believe the days of creation were literal days or were ordinary days like we experience today. Well, the language of the text is irrefutable. And so you cannot reinterpret that text to mean what you want it to mean in order to accommodate the old earth creationism beliefs you clearly want to believe. You have to be honest about what the text says, and if you're a Bible-believing Christian, you have to accept what that text says, no matter how much you don't like it, no matter how much it contradicts with what the world is telling you. So with that, I'm done here, and hopefully you found this video to be very educational. And if you haven't already, be sure to hit the subscribe button, check out my other videos, leave your likes and comments down below, and be sure to follow me at all the places, Creation Social and Spotify, BitChute, Rumble, X, and everywhere else that's listed in my Linktree link, which is also in the description box down below. And hopefully I will see you in the next video. Ta-ta for now. And I'm here and ready to bring things to an end. But that video debunking Frank Turek is especially powerful because of the fact that people like him for years have been claiming, well, Genesis 1 doesn't say that God made the earth and universe 6,000 years ago. Therefore, that position can't be true. It's like, dude, creationists have never once argued that. Not ever. So why do you keep focusing on that? But anyway, this stream has been great, but it must come to an end, unfortunately. I see Dan was there saying great info, listening while out. A vid is better than chat right now. Was going to watch this vid. Perfect. And then Dan ended it by saying that Frank is such a smart guy and great apologist. Sad he adds deep time. Well, beyond adding deep time, the problem I have with him is that he pretends to be open-minded on the issue. He pretends that, well, young earth creationism could be true, and it's really just an in-house issue that Christians need to figure out without the outside world seeing it. And that's all an attempt to get people to shut up about the issue and not talk about it. Because there was a guy that I talked to once who said that he was at a Frank Turek event where Frank Turek was paying lip service to the possibility of young earth creationism being true, and that if someone could present him evidence of its truthfulness, he'd be willing to look at it. So this guy, he went up to Frank Turek after the speaking event was over and said, hey, I remember that part of your talk, and I have right here in my hands a book that I wrote that provides evidence that young earth creationism is true. You said you'd be willing to look at that evidence in your talk, so I'm willing to give you this book for free to look at and give me your thoughts on. And Frank Turek's response was to refuse the book. Yes, so Frank Turek is not nearly as open-minded as he portrays himself to be. He just does that to make himself look that way and get people to think he's this great, amazing apologist who's just so intellectually honest. Now, to be fair, when Frank Turek makes good arguments, he does come off as being a great apologist because he has that charisma. But when he's got that charisma attached to obvious lies, well, it doesn't come off that way. But yeah, I get where you're coming from, Dan. Anyway, before we get out of here, I'm going to go ahead and remind you guys just one more time, even though it's been a time. Ooh, excuse me. Oh, yeah. Anyway, so let's run down the docket once more. Obviously, if you're interested in my content, here's my YouTube channel. You can see it right here on screen. The handle for the channel is at TTOR13. And I would encourage you to subscribe and check out my videos there. There's also my Spotify account where I back up my videos and my shows. So this live stream will be there shortly. And then there's my Rumble channel, which I'm approaching 200 followers. I live stream the shows here. All my videos go here too. I would love to grow my Rumble channel. So if you're interested in following me through Rumble, be sure to do that. And then, of course, there's my BitChute channel where you can see I have it sorted out to my oldest videos from 8+ years ago. So if you're interested in not just watching all my new content and watching my shows as they happen here on BitChute, but you also want to go see all my older content to see what my arguments were years ago and the kinds of videos I was putting out years ago and the way I did things back then. If you want to see like the whole history of TTOR and you also want to, let's give me 1 second. Yeah, okay, yeah, there we go. And you want to see how I did things back in the day in terms of my back and forths with evolutionists and whatnot, I would definitely encourage you to check out my BitChute channel. And then, of course, there's my Creation Social website where you can find my account, obviously. That's a Twitter alternative that I have going that I personally own and run. And so if you guys would join me here so we can make this site a happening place, I'd appreciate that. You can also follow me on Twitter. You can follow me on Gab. You can follow me on Getter. And you can follow me on Truth Social. And I believe I put the link to the Creation Dialogues listing on Amazon in the chats everywhere. So hopefully you guys will get the book for yourself. I'm sure JD Mitchell would appreciate it greatly. And okay, so with that, I bid you guys adieu and farewell. And I will see you in the next video. And I will see you next Saturday. Ooh, excuse me. Pardon me. I will see you next Saturday night at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, which would be 9:30 p.m. Central, which would be 10:30 p.m. on the East Coast. This is the late night show on the Proverbs Guy Network. The late night Saturday night show will be here same time, same place the next 2 Saturdays. Hopefully I'll see you next Saturday night. Have a good one.